it from miles away. Bukit Tagar, Malaysia's largest landfill. A place where trash and people coexist, every plastic bag, every fragment of waste, every breath. The air is a mix of burning plastic rotting food, human waste, and thick black leachate seeping into the earth. And right here, in a place most would never choose to step foot in, hundreds of people live every single day surrounded by the waste modern society refuses to acknowledge. Number 1. The City of Garbage, Bukit Tagar. A name unfamiliar to many, but it plays a central role in Malaysia's waste management system. Every day, it receives thousands of tons of solid waste from the nation's busiest urban zones. The Bukit Tagar Sanitary Landfill spans over 700 acres of engineered landfill space. Around it is a designated buffer zone, covering 1,000 additional acres. This area was developed to help limit the environmental and social impact on nearby settlements. The landfill is located in a remote part of Hulu Selangor, surrounded by oil palm plantations. It sits over 50 kilometers from the center of Kuala Lumpur, in a region with limited population density and minimal infrastructure. The distance is no accident. It was selected to quietly absorb the waste generated by the country's rapidly expanding capital region. By 2025, Bukit Tagar has been receiving around 2,500 tons of waste every day. Most of it comes from Kuala Lumpur and the central Selangor area. With a total capacity of 120 million tons, the site is expected to remain operational for more than 40 years. This is a sanitary landfill by design. It is equipped with a multi-layer lining system, leachate treatment facilities, and gas collection networks. The site handles municipal solid waste along with other non-hazardous materials, such as household garbage, light commercial waste, and general refuse from urban activities. Despite its technical standards, the scale of the landfill presents serious challenges. The long-term pressure of constant dumping raises questions about its sustainability and the surrounding environment's resilience. Managing millions of tons of trash is never a clean or quiet process. What makes this place more complex is not just the waste itself. People live and work on this ground. Families cook, eat, and raise children beside what others throw away. This is the beginning of a much deeper story. There is more behind these piles of waste than most are willing to see. Number 2. Breathing toxic air. The air around Bukit Tagar is heavy. It doesn't just carry heat or dust, it carries a presence, one that clings to skin, sinks into clothes, and settles deep in the lungs. A mix of burning plastic sour gas and rotting waste hangs in the atmosphere from sunrise to sundown. Even from a distance, the smell arrives before the sight. Up close, it is suffocating. It creeps into homes, sticks to food, and makes sleep feel like breathing through a dirty filter. This is not just unpleasant, it is toxic. Environmental tests in the area have recorded elevated levels of methane, ammonia, and airborne particulates. Doctors working nearby have another name for it: the invisible killer. Fine dust from decomposing waste enters the lungs like smoke. Over time, it scars the tissue, weakens immunity, and raises the risk of chronic illness, especially among the elderly and children. But the damage doesn't end with the air. Local groundwater has changed color. Wells that once supplied clean drinking water now produce liquid with a strange yellow or gray tint. Farmers have abandoned their fields after seasons of failed crops. In nearby streams, dead fish float belly up, and the riverbanks have turned black. Bukit Tagar was built with systems meant to protect the environment. But no system is perfect when waste arrives faster than it can be managed. And once contamination begins, it doesn't stay inside the landfill, it seeps out. Silently. Daily. For the families living closest to the site, every breath is a risk. And every glass of water carries a question no one wants to ask out loud. This is what it means to live next to a landfill in the 21st century. Not surrounded by trash, but surrounded by what it leaves behind. Number 3. Women of the trash. Along the uneven slopes of Bukit Tagar, it is often women who shoulder the hardest work. From the pale light of dawn until the landfill disappears into evening smoke, they sift through heaps of refuse for 12, sometimes 14 hours at a stretch. There are no helmets, no masks, no rubber boots. Discarded flip-flops and bare hands stand in for protective gear, and every jagged can or splintered bottle is a new chance for injury. Facilities most people consider basic never arrived at this place. Toilets are improvised screens of torn plastic. Showers are a bucket of rainwater mixed with the dark runoff that seeps from the garbage itself. During menstruation, many rely on strips of cloth pulled straight from the waste stream, washed in the same contaminated water, then used again because nothing else is available. Long hours and heavy loads strain bodies already weakened by smoke and dust. Doctors who run occasional outreach clinics describe a steady pattern of respiratory illness, anemia, and fatigue, so deep that some women can barely stand at day's end. Harassment, verbal, physical, sometimes worse, flashes through the unlit corners of the site. But few incidents are reported. There is no formal security, no clear authority to turn to, and little expectation of redress. Even so, the landfill's edge is alive with quiet routines. Infants sleep in cloth slings, while mothers sort plastic bottles by color and grade. A lullaby might drift above the noise of bulldozers sung from a shelter, pieced together with advertising tarps and rusted rebar. Lunch is rice mixed with vegetables salvaged at dawn. Breaks are counted in minutes because every kilogram of recyclable material means a few additional ringgit on the scale. Most of these women arrived after losing farmland factory jobs or spouses. A few were born on this ground and have never known another address. What keeps them here is not the promise of prosperity, but the certainty of daily cash just enough to buy food. Pay for school uniforms, keep debts at bay. In the hierarchy of the landfill, they receive the smallest share of profit and absorb the largest share of risk. But their labor is what keeps the informal recycling chain moving. They ask for little more than safe tools, clean water, and a chance to work without fear. Until such essentials are offered, their lives will remain bound to the very trash the rest of us choose not to see. Number 4. Food from filth. How does your day begin, and what does your first meal look like? On this landfill, breakfast begins with the sour smell of refuse. Before sunrise, a convoy of collection trucks reverses into Bukit Tagar. Dozens of families move toward the fresh piles as if arriving at a morning market. Their first hunt is not for aluminum cans, but for half bowls of rice-wilted greens, scraps of meat that cling to pale bones, or a packet of crackers torn open but not finished. Everything is judged by eye and by nose. Food that carries only a slight tang is saved. Items with a rancid color are set aside. A discarded steel drum serves as a stove. Fuel comes from broken pallets or dry branches lifted off the ground. Smoke from the scrap wood mixes with fumes from the rubbish weaving into hair clothing and the thin soup that simmers over the flames. Children sit in a loose circle around a plastic basin. They do not ask what will be served. They only hope the fish salvaged at dawn still has its skin and has not soaked up landfill water. A waste picker in Malaysia rarely earns more than 65 ringgit, roughly 14 United States dollars, for an entire day of labor. Such an income will not buy a single hot meal in Kuala Lumpur. Rescued food stretches the budget, leaving a few ringgit for rice cooking oil or a child's basic school fee. The cost surfaces in clinic records. A UNICEF report from the year 2023 shows that across Malaysia, 1 child in 5 is stunted. 15% are underweight, and more than 10% suffer acute malnutrition. Mobile nurses working near the landfill log constant cases of diarrhea, intestinal parasites, and gastric distress, all traced to spoiled meals. Families know the risk, but hunger rarely waits for safer choices. Amid crackling plastic and acrid smoke, a mother scoops yellowed rice, blows on it, and lifts a spoon to her child's mouth. She repeats the refrain many parents share: every meal is a gamble with illness. On this ridge of trash, no alternative hand is dealt to those who live among waste. Number 5. The plastic that came from the USA. Across Europe and North America, recycling bins look green and hopeful, but a silent reality follows many of those bottles and wrappers. A large share cannot be reprocessed at home because it is coated with food fused with aluminium or layered with several kinds of plastic. For years, the simplest solution was to load the problem into steel containers, disguise it as recycled feedstock, and send it away. Until the year 2018, China accepted more than half of the world's plastic and paper scrap, feeding whole towns devoted to sorting and melting imported waste. When Beijing announced the National Sword Policy and closed its ports to mixed or contaminated loads, exporters scrambled for alternatives. Vessels were rerouted to Southeast Asia, and Malaysia soon emerged as a primary landing spot. The numbers rose quickly. Government tallies show that last year Malaysia received about 35,000 metric tons of American plastic waste. Much of it arrived under paperwork that called the cargo raw material, though inspections often told another story. In one headline case, customs officers opened more than 100 containers from Los Angeles and found toxic debris hidden beneath clean plastic film. Photographs of leaking chemical drums and medical tubing lit up local news channels, and public patience evaporated. Environment Minister Nick Nazmi spoke for many citizens when he declared, "We refuse to let Malaysia become the world's dumpster." That statement is now law. 1 week ago, the government issued a prohibition on all ships carrying plastic waste from countries that have not ratified the Basel Convention, the global treaty designed to curb trans-boundary movement of hazardous waste. Because the United States remains outside the agreement, its cargo falls squarely under the ban. Shippers call the new policy disruptive. Communities living near Malaysian landfills call it long overdue. Containers once turned toward Klang Harbor are idling at foreign docks, each one a metal reminder that throwing something away is never a single act. If the ocean can no longer hide contaminated plastic, exporting nations must confront an older question on their own shores. When a package cannot be recycled, where should it really go? Number 6. Growing up with trash. A child in Bukit Tagar learns the color code of plastic before the alphabet. At an age when many 5-year-olds recite nursery rhymes, these boys and girls can already tell high-density polyethylene from low-grade film by sound weight and the way it snaps between their fingers. Their classroom is an open plain of waste. The daily lesson begins when the first truck tilts its container and a fresh hill of rubbish rolls down like an avalanche made of bags and bottles. There is no formal school nearby. The closest public primary stands more than 15 kilometers away, beyond a toll road few parents can afford. A handful of non-governmental groups offer weekend tutoring under canvas tarps, but attendance depends on weather, on work demands, and on whether a child must stay home to care for younger siblings. Pencils